Hello, everyone. Now that you've read Catherine Ingram's Facing Extinction, I think it's important for me to talk to you a little bit about it because its message is very dark. It's so dark, in fact, that many former students felt disturbed after reading it. I had assigned it for the first time about 4 years ago and discovered then that all of my students were quite distressed. They reported feeling depressed, frustrated, angry, fearful, and grieving for the world. Some said they just wanted to give up. I even had one young student tell me that she didn't see any reason to stay in school or to have children. Others told me that they had not slept or eaten for a few days. I should say that there is nothing inherently wrong with any of those reactions to Ingram's essay, but what I learned then from my students was that they wanted me to provide some kind of context for the reading, hence this video. So let me start by telling you that I too had similar reactions to Ingram's essay. But being older than most of you and having gone through 2 graduate programs in writing and literature, I probably had a few more strategies for coping with challenging messages like Ingram's Facing Extinction. So, what are those strategies? Well, the first one is postpone judgment. This strategy applies to most things you encounter in school, not just Ingram's essay. Postponing judgment is what educated people do when they encounter new thoughts and ideas that challenge their assumptions. Educated people start by taking such messages at face value. They neither dismiss new information nor do they thoughtlessly agree with it. They likely will have instincts about the relative credibility, currency, reliability of a source, but their first priority is just to make sure they fully understand what the other person has written or said. Once they do, educated people will look for other credible sources that tend to confirm or refute the author's ideas. It isn't until a preponderance of sources coalesce into, like, let's say, a consistent pattern, that educated people will pass judgment. The second strategy is an extension of the first one, and that's to remember that Ingram doesn't necessarily know what will happen in the future. She's entirely upfront about this, even though she also feels pretty certain that she does know what will happen in terms of climate change. Still, other voices are not entirely like Ingram's. Many expert voices disagree with her about the likelihood of human extinction in the near term. Furthermore, some scientists credibly question the precision of models that seek to estimate, for example, the rate at which plants and animals are currently going extinct. In other words, there's a lot of space to dig into climate science and discover where experts are uncertain or are in disagreement. You will have an opportunity this semester to do your own research into one aspect of climate change. The third coping strategy is to avoid going into denial. We human beings have a great capacity for denying unpleasant truths, and we often do this unconsciously. Going into denial is a defense mechanism, an instinctive reaction that aims to protect our minds from emotional injury. But under the surface, that disturbing information is still there, and it will always be a source of nagging unhappiness until we deal with it frankly. Therefore, try hard to avoid the reactive tendency to dismiss Ingram's message. Whether she is wrong or right, and whether we instinctively agree or disagree with her, she's a credible writer and thinker who deserves to be taken seriously. This will be easier to do if you just remember you don't have to come to any decision about her essay right now. Once you've fully absorbed what she's saying, you'll be in a better position to evaluate her message. The fourth strategy extends from the third. Accept all of your emotional reactions to Ingram's dark knowledge. I mentioned what your predecessors and I felt when first encountering this essay. Those feelings certainly aren't happy ones, but if that's how you feel, be confident that is completely okay. Again, you don't necessarily have to come to any decisions about what you feel. I just think it's a good idea to note or to keep track of exactly what your feelings are. You could write them down in a notebook, for example. Just make a simple list of emotion words like sadness, grief, anger, despair, or whatever it is you feel. The key to this strategy is to understand that, frankly, acknowledging negative emotions helps us avoid stewing in them. You may be surprised at how quickly negative feelings dissipate when openly and fully acknowledged. The fifth technique is a time-honored one, and one that Ingram herself writes about. It is to share how you're thinking and feeling with someone else. Sharing it lightens the load. Just find someone who will listen without judgment and without trying to fix things for you. My sixth suggestion is another one that Ingram writes about. Let go of blame. I think it's quite natural, especially if you're younger, to want to blame those who are older than you. After all, it was they who put you in the situation in which you even have to think about climate change. Of course, there really are people who willingly and knowingly profit from the destruction of our environment, and who, therefore, probably share a greater proportion of the legal or moral blame. But the fact is that every one of us contributes to the problem of climate change daily. We can't escape it. So while pointing the finger of blame is understandable, it tends to oversimplify the nature of complex problems. And that oversimplification tends to lead to simplistic solutions that rarely work. I think your time would be better spent, therefore, in digging into the problem at hand, trying to understand its full breadth and scope. Doing that will put you in a much more confident and optimistic position from which you can consider realistic solutions. One last strategy is to note positive moments that do crop up in Ingram's essay. Despite her insistence on offering no hope, her message isn't uniformly depressing. She writes about laughing with friends and about having a sense of humor amid the storms of our lives. She also writes about being a courageous and loving person. So while the weight of her essay is about as dark as it gets, you should nevertheless be alert to and carefully consider the power of those moments when she offers us some glimpses of light. Finally, I just want to mention that students before you wanted you to read and think about Ingram's essay. I asked them, should I keep assigning this, or is it just too depressing? And every single student answered, yes, give it to them. It's better they read it and know about it than not to know at all. I tell you this because I think you might find it somewhat comforting to know that there were others just like you not so long ago who really wanted you to read and think about what Ingram has to say. Okay, if you find these strategies helpful for maintaining a sense of balance while you consider Ingram's Facing Extinction, please let me know. I'd like to get your feedback. Take care.